Welcome everyone to our January guest speaker with Dr. Priya Thomas. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Feel free to say hi in the comments. Welcome. You guys can go ahead and say hi in the comments. We'll get started in a few moments. Hey, if you're just joining, you can go ahead and say hi in the comments. We'll get started in just a few moments.
Alliance HOSA members to our January guest speaker with Dr. Priya Thomas. Good evening. I'm Cherry. Just to introduce myself, I'm one of your HOSA sophomore council members, and I'm so excited to be here tonight.
Hey guys, I'm Aritha and I'm one of your committee leaders, and I'm also so excited to be here with you guys and have everyone meet Dr. Thomas. And just as a reminder, we are going to have a QR code for attendance at the very end, so be sure to stay the whole time to get your credit.
Before we begin, I'd like to briefly introduce our CTSO organization to new members. HOSA is a healthcare-led healthcare organization, that strives to prepare students for the future of healthcare. Though our Alliance HOSA chapter, we bring to you monthly guest speakers with a wide range of specialties and from all across the globe.
Now, without further ado, tonight's guest speaker is Dr. Priya Thomas. And on behalf of Alliance HOSA, we welcome you with warm and wide arms. Thank you so much for joining us. We are truly honored. We're going to be starting off the discussion, and we will have the opportunity for member questions towards the end of the event. So feel free to just put down your questions if you have any throughout the session.
Hi, sorry, I couldn't hear you.
That's all right. All right, is it good now?
Yeah.
All right, so that means that the floor is open to any questions at any time, so type them up in the chat box. Dr. Thomas, why don't you begin by introducing yourself and telling our members a little bit about your field?
Sure. Thank you, Amrita and Cherry. Or Cherry, did I say it right?
Yes, Cherry.
Okay. All right. So I'm a pediatrician. I get to take care of kids, watch them grow from the time they're newborn to when they're about 18 to 19. And some teenagers or some, yeah, they'll come till they're 21. So I see some of the adults as well. So I get to, take care of their illnesses and help with their development and any questions and that they may have. And I love what I do. So I take care of children. That is my job, and I love it.
All right. So just to start from the very beginning of your journey, I was just curious to see how did your high school experience go? What kind of sparked your interest in this field? When did you gain an interest in this field? And how were your high school years?
Sure. So I did not go to high school here in America. I went to high school in India. So it was a very different experience than some of you. But the interest in medicine started much earlier than high school, actually. I was 6 years old when my grandmother, she had a shoulder issue and she had to go to the hospital for her pain. And she had to take multiple trips for it. So I am the oldest in the family, and she just needed somebody to go with her. And I was the person at 6 years of age. I would just go with her to the hospital. And what struck me about the hospital, if you've ever been to a hospital in India, it has a very strong this antiseptic smell. So that didn't really turn me off. I just remember that smell. But what I remember also is that people were very kind to her. They took care of her, and she felt better every time she came back. And I remember telling myself, hey, I want to be one of these people here, helping others when they are not feeling good. Because I remember her not feeling good, and then she would feel better, when she went to the doctors and the nurses. So that is my first sort of spark into the field of medicine. And as I grew older, that interest never went away. And finally, when I was in high school, really became a passion. And so, yeah, that interest never left me, and I am.
So how did you know you wanted to be a pediatrician? Out of all the jobs in the healthcare field?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was going into medical school, I did not know that I wanted to be a pediatrician. I had always enjoyed working with kids, but I did not know what that meant in the medical field. So I remember the first day of my pediatric. That is how you get exposed to different fields in medicine, right? And I loved the kids, but I also loved other pediatricians. So everybody who worked with children, what I noticed about them is they had they were smiling the most, and they seem to have the most joy in medicine, right? Medicine is a somewhat of a serious field, and illnesses in children are also a serious thing. But pediatricians seem to enjoy the medical field the most, to me at least. And I was like, they're funny and they're kind, and I want to be around people. I'm going to be working with other pediatricians. So that's what initially drew me to pediatrics. I wanted to be with kind, lighthearted people in medicine. And then I eventually fell in love with really the pediatric medicine, right? It's very different than adult medicine. The illnesses are very different. And then I decided to become a pediatrician at the end of my pediatrics rotation in medical school.
So did you shadow any specific pediatricians to see if you actually enjoyed a field, like working in this kind of work environment, or?
Yeah, so I shadowed a physician prior to medical school, and he was not a pediatrician, he was an internist. Um, and I really learned a lot about bedside manner from him, the way he treated his patients. And what I loved was that he had an ongoing strong relationship with his patients. Like he knew them over a period of years, and he kind of knew everything about them and their family and everything that was going on. So he is an internist who I shadowed in during my early college years. And then in medical school, so every medical school does things a little differently, but everybody's assigned a mentor. And when I started the first year of medical school, my mentor happened to be a pediatrician as well. So she was a pediatric critical care physician, and that meant that she took care of very, very ill children. But again, she would, I remember when she first invited me to the ICU and I was meeting her, and she had cooked a meal for me. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's so busy, but here she's taking time to cook a meal for me. So I did spend time with her, and I think she also influenced my decision to pursue pediatrics. And I was randomly assigned, it's not like I expressed interest in pediatrics. And she happened to be pediatrics.
All right, so could you talk more about how your college experience was like? Because I know you did high school in India, but you did college here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. So I moved to the US, to Atlanta, after high school. And so I started college here in Atlanta. So I went to Georgia Parameter, which is a community college, because I was a very non-traditional student. I didn't go to high school here. So I was kind of, as an immigrant, figuring out here. So I started in community college, started taking classes. So remember, I told you I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but I did not know at that point, like, what does it take to be a doctor in America, right? Because the system in India is very different. You kind of go to medical school straight from high school. So I was kind of learning the system, and I figured out, okay, I need to take these pre-med classes, and I need an undergraduate degree, and I need to take my MCAT. Okay, this is what it takes to go to medical school. So my college experience was that when I started in the community college, but here I was the oldest daughter of immigrant parents, and my parents did not have great jobs or a lot of money because we had just moved to the country. And I had the Hope Scholarship that paid for my community college, but I did not have any more money than that. And I was like, wait, it takes 12 years to become a doctor. That's a lot of time. I need a job. I need to help my family. So I decided to go to nursing school because I was like, okay, this is in the medical field and I can get a job right away and I can make money and help my family. So I decided to go to nursing school and I transferred to Georgia State. But the desire to be a physician never left me. So what I did was I was in nursing school, but I would also take pre-med classes. Because I thought, okay, maybe one day if I can go to medical school, I still need these classes. So there was this really that hope in me that I would one day, even though I was on the path to finish nursing school. So so my major was nursing, and I finished nursing school. And I worked as a nurse for a year, but I completed my pre-med classes, and I took my MCAT and applied to medical school, and I got in. So I graduated, and I worked for a year, and then I started medical school the following year.
So what were some big differences between like nursing school and like medical school?
Yeah, so nursing school was challenging, and I learned a ton, and really it was very helpful because I got the viewpoint of nurses such an integral part of the medical system. And I got the viewpoint of patient when they first come in, right? When you first come into the hospital system or even the doctor's office, the first person who greets you is the nurse. So I got to be that first person to take care of patients. So it was an incredible experience, a lot of hands-on experience. I got to give medications, give injections, do a lot of procedures. So it was challenging in a different way. I would say the major difference is that the amount of studying, like the amount of depth that you learn in medical school is much more than nursing school. But nevertheless, it was challenging, and it was a lot of fun. I made a lot of good friends, and I learned very practical, hands-on experience in the hospital in different settings. So one of the things you do in nursing school is you do rotation. So I did pediatrics rotation at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta in the inpatient floor. I did OB, and I did regular surgical floor and cardiology. So I got exposed to a variety of areas in medicine as a nursing student, and it was great.
So would you say taking that step towards nursing school helped you ultimately reach your end goal, like with a lot, I wouldn't say ease, but for lack of a better way to put it, yes, but like did it help you with your final goal?
I think it did. Right, personally, that's not the path that most people take.
Mhm.
But interestingly, there were two other nurses in my medical school class, so I was not the only nurse that went to medical school.
Mhm.
And I think, I still needed to take I still need to take my pre-medical courses. I still needed to take my MCAT. So in that way, it wasn't all that different. It was just that my major, and if you were to major in biology versus in biochemistry, maybe it would be a little bit different, right? We can all choose a major in college. You don't have to major in any particular area to apply to medical school. So I thought it was, in some ways, it helped me in that it helped me with practical knowledge. I had much more up close knowledge of what medicine was and what it meant to take care of patients than someone who didn't have necessarily those hands on experience interacting with patients. And now they are in medical school. So I would personally say it was very, very helpful.
Would you say there were any major challenges that you didn't predict that you would face in college itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think we underestimate the amount of work. I thought high school was now. High school was different. India was really. I mean, maybe your parents will tell you, like India school is really hard, right? But the material does get challenging. Right? So it was hard. Some of the courses were really, really hard. They were challenging, and nursing school was hard. Some parts of it was really, really hard. I had to like wake up, and I had to go to my rotations like at 6 in the morning and sometimes 5:45 in the morning. I mean, I was not used to that. And I did not have a car. So I remember this, since it's winter, I would, like, in the winter, I had a friend picking me up from somewhere to go to rotation, and I would wait for her in the cold, and at the MARTA station. I'd be like, oh, this is so cold, So there are some practical challenges like that, but it made me better. You need a lot of resiliency to get through medical school. Well, so it made me stronger. The challenges made me stronger, prepared me for everything that laid ahead in medical.
Yeah. So, oh, Cherry, were you gonna go?
Yeah, sorry. So what were your favorite parts of like medical school? Like what really like, stuck out to you?
Yeah, so I would say some of my favorite parts. So, the medical school is structured. The first 2 years are the didactics, right? You're just learning. It's classroom learning. And the second 2 years are the rotations where you get to interact with patients. So I would say I enjoyed the clinical rotations way more. And one of the fun things for me was that I got to go to different cities in Georgia. So all my rotations were in different parts of Georgia. So I got to meet a variety of people from, very different than you kind of get used to the people where in the city you live, and then you go to a new city and you're like, oh, this is very, very different. So that was probably very fun and challenging as well. I would say I was not very good at anatomy, but I loved it. Like the dissection and just our human body is just amazing, right? It's brilliantly made, and it never fails to astonish me. So like just learning, and for a while I thought I was going to be a neurologist, a pediatric neurologist. So I remember like learning about the brain and the physiology professor, Dr. Gulati, like bringing a brain in the classroom, and he was like holding it up, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just fascinating and amazing. And yeah, there was some really, really, like, if you love learning, like there's just so much to learn. And the curiosity never ends.
Mhm.
And I'm 10 years out of medical school, and I'm still amazed by the human body.
So earlier you were talking about how difficult it was for you. You were waiting for your friend outside the station in the cold. And then also I'm assuming obviously it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to be studying because there's a lot of different things you have to be learning in like multiple different classes. So how did you maintain motivation throughout all of that? Like honestly, what was your biggest source of I can keep going, like let me keep going?
Yeah, I think it was about the passion to be a doctor. I would always think of where I want to go, the destination. That made the quote unquote little pain of studying bearable, right? So I thought of, where am I going? Why am I doing this? Because I really want to go to medical school, and I want to be a physician. I want to help people, and I want to do it, so badly, really. I really, really want to do it. And if I want it so badly, I mean, whatever is in front of me, I can do it, because it's sort of like destination keeps you going to your next step, right? Because I'm not at the destination yet. I want to go to medical school and be a doctor, but I'm not there yet. What will get me there? Okay, the next thing to do is to do really well on this next test I have. The next thing to do is to show up my rotation, even though it's cold. I'm committed to my goal. So if you think of, okay, what is the goal I'm committed to? I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to go back because I want to keep going forward. So that was really my motivation.
Would you say there were any specific times where you really felt at your lowest and you honestly couldn't keep going, but you just kept pushing through?
Yeah, there were so many moments, you know? Um, I mean, studying is hard, and it's challenging. It's not fun sometimes. And the thing is that there are some things you really enjoy and you're into, and then there's some things that are not. Or you're a difficult teacher. I remember a particular teacher being, or a professor in nursing school being difficult and that class being very stressful. So yeah, that was hard. And during those times, again, it's sort of like, okay, well, this is really hard, but I can do hard things. I kept telling myself that. Um, I don't know when Nemo came out, but it was probably like when I was in nursing school. I don't know. But one of my mantras was just keep going. Like, just going. This is hard. And there are some really low moments, but keep going.
So taking it one step at a time, you would say is honestly the best way to
Yeah.
approach it.
Yeah. Sort of a big mind, right? This is where I want to go. But you can't just fly there. You kind of have to take the next step.
Mhm. All right, so moving on from college, how was it like fresh out of medical school? What did you do right after you finished your medical school?
So right after I finished medical school, I mean, I had a summer off. I had fun. And then I started residency. That was hard. So I moved across. So I did my residency in New York, and so I had to move, and that was fun. I loved New York City, so I was experiencing this new city. I got married in medical school, so I was actually, my husband lived in New York, and I was in Augusta, Georgia. So we were long distance. So I was now we got together. So that was great. So that was really fun after medical school, and then residency started. That was really hard. Residency is, you're working 80 hours per week.
Mhm. So, any challenges you faced during residency that you feel are important to speak on, or?
Yeah. Um, in residency, first year residency, I actually was expecting my first baby. So here I was, experiencing like trying to work 80 hours, but I'm also pregnant and about to have a baby and speak about physical challenge and mental challenge, right? Um, that was hard, actually. That was really, really hard. And I had my baby at the end of first year of residency. But again, I had done hard things and it felt hard physically, because, I remember at the end, so, you know, uh, our, some of, so NICU rotation, we would work 24 hours in a row, no sleep. I mean, sometimes you get a little sleep, but 24 hours you're just in the hospital and you're really, really exhausted, right? You're sleep deprived and you're taking care of little babies, tiny little babies. That was physically challenging. So residency was physically very challenging, you know, and again, you keep going because your end goal is to finish residency. So that vision of what my destination is, my goal is to be a pediatrician working independently. That's where I'm going. That kept me going.
So how did you balance like doing residency and then like still like being a brand new mom? Like how
Yeah.
did you just like have like a healthy like work-life balance?
Yeah. So that was so there's no balancing. There is just, there's just really finding harmony between the various aspects of your life, right? Um, so I would say that I had a very supportive husband who's like, you know what, you don't have a choice the number of hours you have to work. When you have a real job, right, you kind of get to choose. Maybe you can work part-time, all of that. But in residency, you have to work the hours they tell you. So it meant that a lot of the time he was the one taking care of my daughter. And that was fine because she was with a parent who loved her. And then I was okay with that. I was like, I'm going to be really present with her when I'm home. And then when I have to be at work, I'm going to do my best at work. And but you don't ever get through life by yourself. You really need a support system. You need other people. You need other people, friendships, family, who can really kind of get you through. So even when you have sort of that goal in mind, right? It may seem like it's all in your head, but you really need a support of people to encourage you and to help you. None of us make it in life, or none of us make any of our goals on our own.
Mhm.
Finding that support is very important. And for me, having my husband and we have friends, really, they would come and play with my daughter. And we had a loving support system who kept us going.
So throughout your journey, would you say you made like many lifelong friends that you definitely, especially in medical school and residency, just because you're working those 80-hour weeks. So the people that you spend time with, would you say that you became friends with them and close with them?
Yeah, I did. I made lots of good friends, with in residency and outside of residency, and they are the ones who get you through. You have to like the people who you spend a lot of time with.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
All right. So out of residency, what did you do right out of residency? Did you have any specific aspirations? Because at that point, you're kind of like at the point where you can do a lot of different things, right?
Yeah, I was a free bird. Yeah, so finishing residency felt really good. I mean, it was a long time coming, right? So as I tell people that medical school is like a marathon and not a sprint, right? You kind of, and then that was kind of like the finish line, and it felt really good. Like, it was quite an accomplishment. I was very proud and very happy to be at the end of a very, very long journey. And then I actually decided to move back home. So I moved back to Georgia, to Atlanta, where my parents are, because again, your support system. I wanted to be sure that my daughter, grew close to her grandparents and knew them, and so we decided to move back, and now I had a choice to kind of look for a job, and I found a job in Alpharetta, and in a small pediatric office. I wanted one of the important things was to um, relationships with my patients. That lifelong relationship was very important to me. So I wanted to be in a smaller practice where I could get to know my patients really well, families. And so I chose to work in a small practice, and that's where I worked for 7 years, and then I opened my own practice this past October.
So how were your experiences working in that small practice? It's like your first time kind of out doing your own thing after medical school and residency. So how
Yeah, so it was, and the thing is, medical school and residency really prepares you for your real life job now, right? This is like your job, but there are still things that you are constantly learning. So one of the great things about medicine is you never stop learning, right? I'm 10 years out of 10 years out of medical school, 7 years out of residency. Medicine is really a vast. There is so much to know. Things change, and you're learning. And really, the best people that you learn from are your patients. I often tell parents, some patients don't read the textbook, right? So there's a textbook version of how a disease should present, and then you'll have a patient who's like, wait, it doesn't quite sound like the textbook version, right? So when you're practicing medicine, it's called practicing for a reason, right? Because you learn your patients, and things may be different in one particular patient than the other. And so you gain this real life knowledge. Like every year, you become a better clinician, right? There is this art of medicine. The way you communicate, the way you relate, the more experience you have, you kind of, you're developing that art of medicine. And that takes time.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it was great. I learned more, and I like to think I am getting better.
Are there any cases that have like really stuck out to you?
So very, very interesting cases, like, you know, um, in the outpatient world, um, particularly during COVID, some of the challenges is that we had to do a lot of telemedicine, and then our clinical judgment of what a patient could have is very, very different than when we were seeing them in real life. So there's also something called, the art of medicine, or the clinical judgment, is sometimes when you kind of know that there's something wrong, but you can't put your finger on it. So I had a child that I was seeing on telemedicine, and he looked kind of sick, but not really. And then, on the video, this kid just started drooling a lot, and everybody had a cold, or everybody was just having viral symptoms. So he just had a lot of drool, and mom the mother didn't think there was anything really wrong. She wanted me to take a look at him, but there's something about him that didn't look right. So, I told mom, hey, I know you don't want to come in the office because it's COVID, but I really need to see and look in his throat. So I'm glad I brought him in the office, because he had this huge abscess in his throat. So it's called a peritonsillar abscess, which is rare. It's not very common, but he needed to go to the hospital and get that drained, and needed IV antibiotics and all of that. Yeah.
So you opened your own practice, right? So what inspired you to open your own practice and branch out from your current pediatric office that you were working at the time?
Yeah. So I really, after 7 years of working and as an employee, which I loved my practice, I loved the patients I was taking care of. I mentioned about the art of medicine, and we all learn the way of doing medicine, and the evidence of how medicine is practiced is the same. Every doctor kind of, practices medicine based on the guidelines, what we call the evidence-based guideline. But then there's the art of medicine, how you kind of deal with the parent and how you structure the practice and the culture of the workplace. And I thought, after 7 years of working, I thought, I want to create a space where I can contribute to medicine in my own unique way. So when I opened my practice, my creativity and my imagination, even as simple as designing my office, designing my logo, and then sort of building the culture of my practice, right? So our core values are compassion and kindness, and treating each other at the practice like the employees, and with kindness. So I wanted to kind of create that space, and create my own kind of touch to medicine, if you will. So I thought, entrepreneurship is challenging. It is not easy. Running a business has its challenges, but I thought, okay, I think I could do it. And again, you need a lot of support. So my husband said, hey, I believe in you. You can do this. And my parents said, we will help you and we'll support you. And now when I have 3 young kids, they said, we'll help you. You got this. And my friends said, we will support you. We'll put on Facebook and promote your clinic. And so, yeah, with a lot of support, I got to open my practice in October.
So are there any specific challenges that you faced while trying to open your clinic, like practice?
Yeah, I mean, just finding a space, the correct office space, was challenging. And I had 3 kids and I'm a mom, and I didn't want to be too far from my home, and, trying to figure out the right place where I could open was challenging. The business side of things, right? So in residency and medical school, they don't really teach you how to run a business. So I kind of had to learn what it takes to establish a business, form an LLC, and I had to kind of learn all that. That was challenging, but every good thing is also challenging, and it's worth doing.
So what were like the most rewarding aspects of owning your own practice? Even though it's relatively new, there's some things probably, right? Which is different.
I think the most rewarding is when the patients, they come in and they're like, we love this place. Because, when I saw this practice, right, it was just an old clinic, and we had to choose the paint color and the lighting and the logo and every single paint on the wall and the design, the wallpaper that's in the office. So everything came out of our own vision and our creativity, right? So that part is really rewarding. And then I get to do things in my own way. I get to run this practice in how I want to do things, and that's very rewarding.
So since opening up your practice, are there any specific cases just in general that you can just kind of share that you thought stuck out to you? Or
sure. I mean, so I had a patient with HSV gingivostomatitis. So HSV is a virus that can cause, give you a cold sore, right? Everybody gets a cold sore, which is common. So it's like a 1 minor sore. But in some kids, and rarely, but you have severe form of it. So I had a kid who was wearing a mask and just came in, and nurse, hey, there's some lesions on the mouth. And so I'm walking in the room, I'm thinking, oh, it's just a cold sore. I lower his mask, and then his lips are huge and there's sores everywhere. And it was the most impressive gingivitis I've seen. And thankfully, we were able to treat him outpatient and take care of him.
So throughout your entire journey, did you see yourself as a person changing, character-wise? So looking back from the very beginning when you came to America and started your college, and then till now, like you as a person, and has it had like an impact on your character, basically your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when I was first starting medical school, I could have never imagined that I would be starting my own business or starting my own practice. I never even thought that I could. I did not think that I had the ability to do this. So the change in character I see is the more hard things you do, the more you believe in yourself, you know, because every skill you don't know things much has been, even if I don't know it, somebody else knows it. And I can ask that person and they can teach me, right? There's this belief that, okay, everything is figure outable. I can figure this out. If I have enough belief in and enough passion, it's possible. So I see the change in how I view myself, that, this, the things that I thought were not possible can be done. But again, I want to emphasize that it's not on my own. There's a whole lot of support. There's a whole lot of, faith, and sustains me. You can't, it's very easy because things are hard to kind of fall apart. You have all the right people with you and the support, you can do.
I think we have a question in the live stream. So, how did you find direction after completing your residency?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to work in it. So it's sort of like, as you go through residency, again, there are different paths you could take after residency. So some people they specialize, they do a fellowship, and others choose inpatient medicine or outpatient medicine. There's so many different paths you could take, right? For me, I was already a mom, and I wanted to really find a job that will give me more time with my daughter. And what I loved about outpatient pediatrics is the relationships you form with your patients. Like, you get to see a newborn baby, and you get to see them, for life, really, if they don't move away. So, and I thought, how great it is to form that relationship and to follow a child over the course of their life. So that really, really, I really like that aspect of outpatient medicine. So that's what drew me, and I made that decision, and then I kind of fell into the job. Like, when I was moving to Atlanta, there was nobody hiring, so there were no jobs. So I called every doctor's office. Are you hiring? I kind of took matters into my own hand. And then finally, the particular office was hiring. And so I got the job.
All right, we have another member question. What do you think is the best qualities a student or a doctor should have to become successful?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think compassion is very important, right? And compassion is because in medicine, you're really seeing people at very vulnerable times in their lives, right? And sometimes it's just a routine physical, and they're happy and there's nothing wrong. But most of the time, in patient medicine, you're seeing kids or adults when they're really sick, they're scared, and they are at a time where they're really suffering. And to kind of put yourself in their shoes and treat people with kindness and compassion, that's really, really important. That's an important quality in anyone going into medicine.
Would you say you need to be more of like a people person also to do a field like this, or?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you mean by people person. You don't have to be an extrovert, right? I think you have to have a way of really having a desire to help the person in front of you, right? So who's in front of you? Be present with them and help them. So I think that is important.
Was there any like specific difficulties you faced during COVID? Like you mentioned, like telemedicine was like one kind of hard thing. Was there any others?
During COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pregnant during COVID, so that was challenging. There was a theme here. Yeah, so I mean, COVID was challenging because I was seeing a lot of anxiety among children, among their parents. There's a lot of fear. I remember this child who came, and her grandmother had passed away from COVID. So I remember her when I gave her the diagnosis of COVID. She freaked out, thought she was going to die as well, right? So there's so much anxiety. So I really had to help kids and talk them through their fears. So I had my own fears as a doctor too. Here I was carrying a baby. I didn't want to get COVID, but I also had a responsibility to my patients. And so I would wear these masks and this PPE, and I saw a lot of patients in their cars. I would swab them. But I also got to comfort them that, hey, I know there's a lot of fear, but here I am with my big belly, but with my PPE and my mask, taking care of you. I think that was comforting to families.
Mhm. So, talking to different children, like about certain things, would you say that was character building on your part? Just like speaking to them and having the patience to work with them through certain challenges that they might be going through mentally, because obviously like a child's reaction is different than an adult's reaction to certain things that you tell them.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I remember as a child, I remember telling myself, I think I was 7 or 8. I remember telling myself this: when I am a grown up, I won't forget what it is to be a child. I won't forget that children have feelings, right? And children are people. Because sometimes grown-ups they treat children like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, your feelings aren't so big. And I've carried that with me. And I think that it's a reason why I became a pediatrician. Because I think it's very, very important to respect kids and to really meet them where they are, right? Their feelings matter. It should not be dismissed. And one of the things is to acknowledge that it's okay to be scared. Sometimes the first thing we tell kids is, don't be scared. But really, that feeling needs to be validated. It is okay. And a lot of times when I tell kids, something, as a grown up, I'm sometimes scared too. They're surprised because no one tells them that grown-ups have same feelings as you all do, right? So I think it's important to meet children, validate their feelings, and to respect them, and to meet them at their level.
Okay, we have another question. So, what is something you wish you had known before going into the medical field?
What is one thing I wished? I mean, there are really hard days. I'll say that most people are appreciative and they are kind to you, but then there are difficult people as well. I like to say that most people, when they're difficult, they're having a bad day and there's a reason behind it. But then there are some days where, the difficult encounters kind of, discourages you, because here you are trying to help people and with all your passion, and someone treats you unkindly. And that happens. That's a reality of the world. That's a reality of when you're dealing with people. And I wasn't naive, that much naive to it before going to medical field, but that is the reality of it.
All right.
So,
Oh, go ahead, Sherry.
okay. So, what has it been like working with like difficult parents sometimes? Because a lot of times parents will be kind of like confused on what's going on. They'll just kind of be like asking a bunch of questions. How do you deal with that every day?
Yeah. So again, I tried to bring a lot of empathy. I tried to put myself in their shoes, right? A lot of times when people are difficult, underneath the difficult behavior is fear. A lot of times there is fear. They're afraid of something. So I try to kind of stay patient and stay calm, because if someone's really agitated and you get agitated with them, it's not helpful. If I stay calm and I can figure out what is it really afraid, what is the fear here, I can usually diffuse it. So that's what I found to be helpful. To remain calm and tell myself they are having a hard time and they're humans, and humans beings have emotions, strong emotions.
So, I know you've been giving us great advice throughout this entire session, but is there any specific pieces of advice that you would give to us as high school students aspiring to pursue careers in medicine?
Yes, I would say, keep that passion alive, right? Again, like I said, medical school or a lot of careers in medical field is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It doesn't come easy. You don't, if you're going to medical school, you get your first job like 12 years in, right? That's a long time. You really have to think about why you are in this. There's a lot of burnout in medicine, right? People get burned out because it's a long path. So you really have to figure out why you're doing this, and then you really have to take care of yourself, right? It's very easy to just go after your grades and work really, really hard and neglect your own well-being. It's very important that you take care of your mental health and your physical health, that you surround yourself with people, that you have social connection. You cannot do this in isolation. So you have to know your why, and you have to take care of yourself, and you need people.
Would you say support system is like one of the most important parts of going into medicine?
Yes, absolutely.
Like,
You need people. You need your parents. You need your family. You need everybody. So when I was in medical school, I came home every 2 weeks after my exams because I needed my mom's homemade meal.
So moving out of state to like New York, would you say that was difficult, being away from your family?
Yeah, it was, there were some challenges, but I was just happy to be in a new city. And I would say it was an adventure. I loved it.
so overall, was your path to medicine something you expected, or was it just like super unexpected throughout the entire thing?
I would say, I took a very not traditional path, but I'm very, very grateful. I am absolutely grateful to do what I do. I'm grateful that I'm a physician and I get to help people. So the path I took is exactly the path I was meant to take, right? All of us take our own paths, and I wouldn't change anything. I'm grateful for every challenge I had, so the ups and the downs and the difficulties, because that's made me who I am.
Mhm. So looking back, there's not a single thing that you were like, "Oh, I'm not very grateful for that happening." It's nothing in specific that you think that comes to mind? Nope,
No, because
everything just
and I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason.
Mhm.
Everything that happened, and I'm glad that it happened the way it did.
Alright, that's great to hear. Okay, so if anyone has any last-minute questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. We will be wrapping up soon. Is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered in specific today, Dr. Thomas?
No, thank you for this opportunity, guys. And, I love that there's so much interest in medicine. We need people who are passionate and who love, helping others. And that's what medicine needs. People need other people, right?
Yeah.
People need other kind people who want to help them. So, be compassionate and pursue your passion and know your why, and you'll be very, very successful. This is a very, very rewarding job. It's a marathon, but the end of it, what you get is a very satisfying career. And it's not because of the money, right? But it's really the relationships, and you get to help people. It's rewarding.
All right. Well, Charity, do you have something to say?
Oh, no.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Thomas, for your time. To close our event, we'd like to thank all of you for joining this conversation and making it interactive.
We are going to leave the QR code for attendance up for a few minutes or so. Remember to get the credit. You must complete this by January 22nd. This video will be posted on our YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much and have a good night.
All right. And once again, thank you, Dr. Thomas. Have a great night. And we are so appreciative that you were able to come on here tonight and share some words of wisdom.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.